Hello, everyone. We are in the MOOC Swayam course on nationalism and constitutional growth in India, 1858 to 1920. Friends, we are in the series of lectures on ideas of nationalism, the conception, the categorization, uh, the conceptualization of nationalism. In the last lecture, I was focusing on the very basic things about nationalism, what we mean by nation, what we mean by nationalism, uh, from where it started, and also uh, the, how do we visualize that nationalism in our contemporary times, right? So, without much, uh, pondering over on that what we discussed in the last lecture, let us now see in this lecture that how this entire story of nationalism, or what we can call it, the the history of nationalism, uh, it where it all started, and what was the progeny of nationalism, but also while discussing about nationalism, we are also going to see the very scholarship. What we mean by scholarship is that who are those scholars, uh, theorists, who have in fact engaged this concept, and also kind of given us certain kind of definition, and and also understanding about the intricacies and also interconnectedness of nationalism with various other uh, historical events, but also the politics associated with that. So, of course, we are going to see today some of the things in that aspect. Now, you can see on the screen again, that we are going to define nationalism, and how we are going to define nationalism. You know, now here on the screen, if you can see, it says that nationalism is characterized as a movement uh, influencing multinational states, rooted in love, respect, and devotion to one's nation. Right now, as I said, and if you can revisit once again, that it's the very idea or the very definition of nation is based on certain singular elements or ingredients or any kind of marker of identity, whether it is language, religion, ethnicity, race, right, or other kind of markers of culture. So, so that in a way, is kind of is going to demarcate that boundary of nation, right? And now, when you're going to have a devotion to nation, then of course, that devotion would involve kind of cherishing those values which are going to define the nation, and those values may be, say, language, ethnicity, or other kind of culture or religion, uh, so to say. So, so it says nationalism is characterized as a movement, right? It's a movement. It's in the process, and in fact, no one would want that nationalism to go away from the political scene. Rather, nationalism should stay in our everyday politics so that we will be able to visualize that devotion towards the nation, right? And hence, for that, it's a persistent and permanent search for an enemy or the one who do not belong to this nation, and hence it is vis-a-vis that entity, whether you call it enemy or foreigner or alien or any other, entity which is against uh, the very existence of the nation, and hence it's a persistent, permanent kind of, insecurity or creation of insecurity, which ultimately, defines that movement, which is ongoing movement, which is rooted in love, respect, and also devotion, right? It's the psycho-political and material grounds for the emergence of nationalism, right? The psycho-political and material grounds for the emergence of nationalism, right? So you start kind of the very idea of devotion, for an example, right? Or that's a kind of it's a mental construct which you know forces one individual to have certain kind of respect, but respect in terms of kind of worship, right? And it becomes a worshipping of the nation in terms of devotion, right? And that becomes a kind of a psychosis, right? And then it becomes kind of kind of a point from where the entire politics starts, right? Worshipping the nation. Uh, for an example, I mean, if we can actually cite example, the very imagination of India has been written, say by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay in Anand Math is Bharat Mata, right? Now, Bharat Mata, or the slogan Bharat Mata ki Jai, right? Uh, if you imagine that Bharat Mata, right? So then you are saying Goddess India, right? And Goddess India, right? And then you are also adhering to worshipping that goddess, right? And in that sense, the very land becomes then sacred land, and then the sacredness of the land again is tantamount to be worshipped, right? And hence worshipping of the territorial, demarcated geographical entity, right? Where those who are worshipping, they belong to that national identity, and those who are not worshipping, of course, they are not part of the land, and hence that creates a very exclusive kind of ideology altogether. So, I mean, that's one kind of example that one can give about the very idea of worshipping, worshipping the land or worshipping the nation. And in terms of that becomes a reference point, is like, the entire politics surrounds that idea that who is going to define the very act of politics, and what would be the resources of the politics, what would be the material of the politics. I mean, what are the vision, what are the mission of the politics, what are the, say, objectives of the politics, and everything is now going to be surrounding that particular reference point, and that reference point is that you have a Bharat Mata, and then uh, the 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 people have to have a obedience. People have to have certain kind of devotion to that Bharat Mata, and then ideology plays a crucial role in supporting that nationalist movements, and nationalism can be intertwined with various ideologies. Uh, so indeed, nationalism is an ideology, but as we also found, and in the last lecture also I was talking about, that it was by and large very instrumental in anti-colonial struggle uh, to unite, to unify, Indian masses against one enemy. There also, enemy was required to have that manifestation, to have that assertion that what we can call it, national movement or nationalism, right, is a driving force to unite people all together to fight against the colonial masters, right? So colonial masters were enemy. So entire politics was kind of revolving around that colonial master, but it became very instrumental. The ideology, there's no doubt about that. But then everyday politics, right? Where when we call it like there are various ideologies which are kind of carried uh, under the banner of nationalism. For an example, fascism, right? To some extent, uh, then also cultural nationalism, right? To some extent, that what we can call it Zionism, right? Uh, Nazism, right? All these things in a way, is in a way revolving around that ideology. But of course, now when we are saying xenophobia or fascism, or to some extent say Nazism, all have certain kind of sense of superiority, and also they assume to be a clement, right? And that idea, or that assumption of to be clement, is now going to be a very decisive factor in terms of the that ideology becoming very potent force to kind of deliver the very result that what is warranted from the political parties, or the political group which utilizes uh, the ideology of nationalism. Also, if you can see that what were the influential factors in the rise of nationalism. The French Revolution is identified as a pivotal moment, marking a shift in sovereignty from dynasty to nation. So here again, it's a very positive development, where that what we are seeing, that because of the French Revolution, that what was erstwhile the monarchical kind of rule, or the political system, that gets destroyed because of the popular upsurge against the exploitation by the monarch, and hence now people are at the fore, giving the slogan of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and kind of marking their presence in the political sphere as is a nation, right? Is a French uh, nation, right? And that's a shift, from the kind of sovereignty, which was kind of sovereignty laden into the hands of the monarch. Now the sovereignty is going to be into the popular hand or masses, right? And it's going to be kind of the very idea of nation is based on plurality or the popular nation, right? Uh, which we can call it like popular sovereignty, and that's going to be uh, you know the very genesis of the idea of nationalism. So people can take over the very brute kind of force, and they can establish their authority, and rather they can in fact claim to be the real stakeholders of the territorial entity rather than one family or one party or one ideology. People by and large are the real stakeholders, and they are the owners of the idea of nation and not the the other kind of manifestations. So in that sense, French Revolution then became one of the pivotal moment in the history of nationalism. Then that's also parallel with that what we call it enlightenment, or what we call it scientific revolution or renaissance, which led to the industrialization, uh, where the very industrialization, the process of industrialization required uh, in certain way uh, the very what we can call it the raw material, the raw resources for the production, right? And for that, all state, all European, because when we are talking about enlightenment, we are talking about a kind of geographical area where it started industrialization, or it's called scientific revolution or industrial revolution, which actually led to various countries going for colonial expeditions and colonizing the people and the land for extraction of resources for their production, in their native countries, and ultimately uh, they also went in those lands, either in the Oriental lands or in Africa, Latin America, or Asia, and with the intent of extracting raw materials for resources, and also with sense of empire building, but the very sense of superiority also was into the minds, and hence when they went only for that purpose, the byproduct of that was the insertion of that the kind of sense of superiority in terms of white man's burden, or certain kind of uh, cultural kind of domination by by typifying people of the Orient in a certain frame, so that they would be feeling themselves as inferior, and hence They can be easily controlled by making them docile, and that in a way, the very the use of religion in terms of missionaries, uh, establishing certain kind of Christendom. That idea was very much part and parcel of the that what Weber calls it, that Protestant ethics. And that gave the rise to an ideology called capitalism. And it's in a way one can dissociate very clinically nationalism and capitalism, kind of very, separate entities. But if one can actually go in deep, one can see that the very rise of capitalism has to do something with also the idea of nationalism also growing parallel, and there is much relationship with capitalism. So we'll see that in a while. Now, the spread of nationalism to different regions worldwide, including, as I said, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, is outlined. Uh, Nationalism is portrayed as a dynamic movement with varying manifestations over different periods. Nationalism was, manifested very differently in different time periods. The consequences of ethnic nationalism especially led to the disintegration of USSR. Now, what do we mean by that? Basically, this ethnic nationalism or ethno-nationalism. Well, as I said, that the very idea of singularity to define nation, that singularity, that singular entity, became very prominent. So when the socialism, particularly during the Cold War, and also say from 1920s onwards when it started, uh, by incorporating many of the satellite states of USSR, uh, all the satellite states had some kind of distinctiveness. But of course, the merger was also, in a way, it was a kind of relationship in a very federal sense of the satellite states, so that the they would be governing themselves, but of course, uh, they will have to toe the line of the ideology called socialism, and hence they would be part of the Soviet Republic. But by the time when Soviet Union started weakening year by year due to the efforts of the erstwhile sole superpower called United States, which was in fact leading the proxy war against Soviet Union to uh, break Soviet Union into many pieces so that one can contain Soviet Union, uh, limited to Russia. And when the Soviet Union started weakening, many of the satellite states, they also started demanding for freedom, and their demand for freedom was imbued with that idea of that what we can call it uh, ethnic identity, Uzbek identity, Kazakh identity, Turkmen identity, Tajik identity, Belarus identity, right? So all these identities led the revolution against the Soviet Union, and then they disintegrated after the collapse of Soviet uh, Union into independent state. Now, let us also see that what are the modern perspectives on nationalism. There's this evolution of nationalist thought, with key scholars like Gellner, Hobsbawm, and Smith. Uh, they have contributed immensely to theoretical works on nationalism. Gellner's book on nations and nationalism, Hobsbawm's yet another book with the same title called Nation and Nationalism, also another book by Eric Hobsbawm called On Nationalism, and also Anthony D. Smith's book called, the ethnic origin of nation. Right? These are remarkable scholarly work by these scholars, and I have thought about dedicating, a lecture on these scholars so that the students might benefit the Tao, uh, Hobsbawm, uh, Gelder, and Anthony Smith were thinking on this idea. So let's hope that we will have certain discussion on specific scholars on this topic. Further, the very distinction between nationalism as a unifying force, as I said, the nationalism was used as instrumental ideology to unify, Indian masses, for an example, against the colonial masters, and its potential for aggression and expansion is also something which is very crucial. Now, aggression and expansion, as I said, that the very ideology gave aggression, like extremists, like the revolutionary fervor during the Swadeshi boycott movement in the Indian subcontinent. Later on, revolutionary people like Chandrasekhar Azad or Bhagat Singh fighting for the right to self-determination, or Subhash Chandra Bose going to form Indian National Army and also going to meet some of the leaders who are not really loved in our times, say Mussolini, for an example. Only the idea was uh, to liberate from the shackles of subjugation from the colonial masters, right? So that was the nationalism which was ultimately becoming unifying force, which was giving aggression. But expansion, as I said, the nationalism is attached with the idea of empire building, and empire building itself is an expansionist ideology, something like Pax Americana, something like Pan Arabism, something like the idea, if we can use it here, for integrated India or undivided India. Some kind of this would lead to nationalism used as a platform from where one is actually trying to expand, right? And that's something like one need to think through. Uh, Also, nationalism's role in international relations and its impact on the political geography of the world. That's yet another very important point. That how it's a nationalism plays a role in international uh, relations in terms of impacting the very reconfiguration of the political geography of the world. Moving ahead, if we can see that the scholars have tried to explain the nationalism by periodization of nationalism studies. So there is birth and development of nationalism from 18th to 19th century. Uh, the academic studies, there's a lot of studies happening from 1918 to 1945 to understand that what is nationalism, right? And what is this ideology called nationalism? It's the scholarship, the scholars who are now engaged with this ideology. It's already developing. It's in the process of development, right? But for the just sake of periodization of the nationalism studies and also development of theories. Now there's a theorization period, right? Now one is trying to understand the very nitty gritty of nationalism, right, from 1945 to 1990, and then the very new dimensions because of the collapse of Soviet Union, because of the end of Cold War, because of the new powers emerging in the world system, right? New players, non-state actors have now come into the picture. So, sir, new story altogether. And now, whether there is any kind of relevancy to this ideology or not, one need to also see that ideologies have a decay period, but whether this ideology is still going to play a same potential role to unify, or it's the ideology which is going to be put into the dustbin. But what we see by analyzing some of the events for the last 20, 30 years, that nationalism is still one of the ideology which is not going from the political landscape. Rather, it is becoming uh, day by day, more forceful, and it is now used, because of the information and technological revolution, because of the market fundamentalism, because of the onslaught of capitalism. It is again going to be manifested in different ways. If we can see again, some of the scholars, some of the early scholars who have, pondered over this ideology, from Rousseau's concept of general will, for an example. Now, what general will does, and Rousseau is considered as someone who was behind the very idea of French Revolution, because French Revolution, in a way, was something where Rousseau's ideas were very phenomenal. So Rousseau's idea of general will is in fact the idea which in a way incorporate and all the people together into one entity where the very general will is reflected into the idea of state, right? So which is going to be a democratic state. So that's kind of that paved the way to a revolution. Immanuel Kant, on one hand, is emphasized on the idea of right to self-determination as the highest expression of free and autonomous will, which supports the idea of republics. And Immanuel Kant is known for his writings on morality and also the idea of morality and knowledge, and in that sense, his work is not associated directly with the development of nationalism, but in a way the very idea of right to self determination as a highest expression of free will is something which can be taken as a root of German nationalism. Johann Gottfried Herder is yet another very important scholar. Herder argued the first stage of nation was a common language. Now you see the language, and all over the world, if you see, religion came later. Language was the first element which united people. If you if you go by previous lectures, that what I was talking about by Vernacular Press Act, that why colonial government wanted to ban our vernacular press and seizing the press, because press were writing about the idea of nationalism in vernacular language. Marathi press, Kannada press, Tamil press, all these press, right? Bengali press, all these press were Urdu press, all these languages were used ultimately to unify. And in that sense, the very idea of common language becomes the first stage. So Herder is in a way right to emphasize the connection between language and thought, right? And Herder viewed each community as having unique cultural characteristics, laying the foundation for the organic cultural national approach. So again, his compatriot, his contemporary Fichte, Johann Gottlieb Fichte, yet another very amazing scholar on transcendence, and many other theories of Fichte, who inspired generation of scholars, right? Who, in fact, came up with this idea of this, spiritual revival thought, formed the basis of nationalist thinking, right? So it's like, Fichte's this non-exclusive revival, spiritual revival thought, right? It's something very unique kind of idea, right? And Fichte defined the German nation, which was based on beliefs in freedom, transcending, a specific ethnic or linguistic criteria. So freedom now becoming the basis of formation of nation, and not language, not other ideas, right? The very idea of spiritual revival, right? Or the very idea of, the spirit, which is going to be the basis of formation of nation. And the spirit, free spirit, right? And that's the Fichte's idea, that free spirit becoming the basis of nation. So I'll stop here in today's lecture. And when we discuss about further discussion on nationalism in the next lectures, we'll try to understand some of the nitty-gritty, some of the intricacies of nationalism further, to enrich ourselves. That the motive, the intent is to understand this concept, which has played a very crucial role in the history of our times and histories in the past, and of course this is some of the this is an ideology this is going to shape yet again the future course of history. So we'll be discussing more on that in the next lecture. Thank you so much.